My friends, one of the things they admire about you, as do I, but
Oh.
they're like longtime groupies. They love how literate you are and what a great writer you are, and how although you talk about things that aren't necessarily literary on the show, you pepper your not just your commentary, but your kind of analytical frame around a really great education in classics.
Well, that's very kind. I give credit to the nuns at Sacred Heart Academy. I exited that high school with a college level degree in English and language. Yeah, no, I'm a reader, and these words fly out of my mouth, and I'm not trying to use 50-cent words when a 25-cent word will do. But it's really gratifying because the troublemakers, they'll say, I love the vocabulary. I
Yeah.
love hearing a word that nobody's used in a while. So it's just fun. It's really fun.
They love the vocabulary. They love the literary references. They also love the grammar police. Quote, if someone says between you and I, she will correct them.
Oh, I'll take them out to the woodshed all day long.
Yeah.
I have an inner grammarian.
Yeah. You've written 3 books, right?
I've written several books, but the
Several
most the ones I'm most proud of are the two most recent, being
Yeah.
American Predator and Ask Not.
Right. Okay. So again, I'll read this one. You don't need to respond to it, but this one person says, I've read all her books. She's a truly serious, genuinely great writer who knows how to tell a gripping story. Guilty as charged. I know that's true, but this is the quote I might like the best of the next two ones I'm going to read you. I'm not even sure exactly what this means, but here's what this person said. She says the death knell for Vogue magazine was when Anna Wintour put Kim and Kanye on the cover, and that is absolutely accurate. What does that mean?
Yes, I compared it to John Lennon's famous quote that Elvis Presley really died the day Colonel Tom Parker put him in the United States Army. It sucked all the rock and roll out of him. That was the moment, Anna caved to pressure from Kanye, who was then a real force in the culture. And he said, he was banging that drum, put Kim Kardashian on the cover, give her the legitimacy of your coronation. And she did that. And that was the moment she lost faithful subscribers of many years and even casual onlookers. It was dead. It was done.
And now it's just like a dinosaur wandering down the highway waiting to perish. Is that what's happening?
It's a husk of itself. They just appointed Chloe Mal, who is the Nepo baby, daughter of the actress Candice Bergen and the late French filmmaker Louis Mal, to run it. And as I said on The Nerve,
to preside over the husk.
Have you, Mark, ever heard somebody say, who's a genius in publishing? Chloe Mal. Who's a real visionary people are fighting over? Chloe Mal. So I'm sure it augurs well for Vogue.
Maybe Anna Wintour sees something in her I don't, and you don't. Now, this is a good one, and I'll say I understand 75% of this one. Here we go. Maureen always gets it right. Good so far, right? Mm-hmm. Brace for some profanity. That Barbara Walters was a grade A+ starfucker. That Lena Dunham is both a talented writer and deeply mentally ill. That John F. Kennedy's Jr.'s vanity and recklessness flat out killed his wife and sister-in-law, and that Sarah Jessica Parker always put herself first. Is that all stuff you said?
Yeah, I don't know if I said it in those exact words, but guilty as charged.
All right. All that's genius. And this is this thing I want to drill down on is you write about and talk about these people with such verve and nerve, but with a honesty and a clarity that is just not on offer that many other places. How do you figure this stuff out? How do you size up somebody like Lena Dunham or Sarah Jessica Parker or John JFK Jr.? How do you do it?
I'll tell you my trick. I'll tell you my party trick, my party trick, Mark. But it requires a time machine. So as discussed on the show, I grew up the product of a difficult mother and a difficult father. And you learn at a very early age how to clock a room and how to clock a mood and how to know when what somebody's saying isn't lining up with what they're doing or they intend to do. And so, I consider myself on the level, frankly, of an FBI criminal profiler. I can spot these people in the wild. And I'm also just a huge fan of pop culture. And I think that's where the fun comes in, and the absurdity and the appreciation of the absurdity. And we just did Ryan Reynolds. And, I talked about him as one of the most dead-eyed psychopaths I've ever seen in the public square. And Mark, you wouldn't believe the feedback was like 100%. Oh my God, we can talk about this now. We can say it out loud. Because, he just treated a child journalist on the red carpet like a piece of garbage.
Yeah, I saw that. Let's go back a little bit. You worked for two of the most iconic media properties maybe ever in pop culture, Sassy and MTV. For people who don't know the significance of those two places, like in the days, when they were hot properties, start with Sassy. What was Sassy? Why was it so significant in the kind of the history of magazines and pop culture?
I mean, I don't think a show like The Nerve exists without a Sassy magazine,
Yep.
which was like the outlier magazine for teenage girls. It was like sort of the alternative rock for teenage girls of magazine publishing. It wasn't 17 magazine. It wasn't Young Miss. It wasn't all preppy, clean scrubbed, perfect popular girls. This was for the girls who were interested in subcultures, who were interested in what was going on in pop culture, but with a sideways take. It spoke very frankly to girls about things that just were not normal conversations in the culture about sex and drugs and rock and roll, but in a really responsible way, in a fun way. And that magazine was everything to me as a kid. So I just cold called them from like my suburban house on Long Island. I think I wrote them a letter and said, "Can I come intern for you?" And they said, yeah. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my young life.
Yeah.
And then I got an internship at MTV as well. And that was back when MTV really was moving the culture. I mean, it wasn't just reflecting it, it was pushing it and dictating it. And God, that was so fun. It was before it was really, really corporatized, before it really, moved over to what we used to call the Death Star at 1515 Broadway.
Those two
so
brands,
much fun.
Those two brands were the internet before there was an internet, social media before there was social media, and such an important part of that era. Paramount's talking about trying to revive MTV. I never understood why it had to die. Like, why couldn't they transition to the digital age and make MTV what it was back then?
They in a way they kind of committed cultural suicide by once they moved out of playing music videos, and the internet helped break it too, like so much. But they really began sort of their day parts became blocks of scripted programming or reality programming, and they just never could find their footing. I think MTV is gone, truly. I mean, the MTV Video Music Awards aired on Sunday night, and nobody even noticed.
Well, the New York Post noticed. If it hadn't been for the New York Post, I wouldn't have known it happened.
Right, but you knew it happened after the fact, and that's the
True.
point.
Good point. Good point. All right, let's talk a little bit more about writing and its connection to what you're doing now. Like, is the through line storytelling? How did your career as a great writer, how does it translate into what you're doing now with your show?
Well, thank you for that. I'm having so much fun with The Nerve because this is a form of storytelling that is semi-new to me, but I love it. It's writing, but I'm writing in a different way and I'm using a different muscle. So instead of purely describing things on the page, we can pull audio and video, and when you hear and see people say the things that they hear and say, it's a gut punch like no other. There's no denying it. One of my favorite experiences in writing American Predator, I talked to these really top level FBI agents for like 2 years. And one of them said to me his favorite interrogative technique when dealing with a high level suspect was to just show them photos and video and not say a word. Just like silently slide it across the table. And he said, you cannot lie your way out of a photo. You cannot lie your way out of a video. And so it's kind of like, Megan's a real lawyer, but in my mind, I'm like a criminal cultural prosecutor. So I love to think like a lawyer and like, in what order am I going to layer the video and the audio to like really build the narrative to a crescendo and a gut punch and like leave blood on the floor.
All right, you mentioned Megan, and I'd be remiss without us talking about her since she's brought us on to be part of the vast empire. Here's another quote from my chat group about you. Quote, Megyn Kelly respects her, and Megyn Kelly is my queen. Thoughts on that?
I was about to say Megyn Kelly, queen mother of all of us, beginners here at MK Media. I couldn't agree more. And, when she started having me on her show pretty regularly, I, I never said this to her, but I was like, I am getting, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but I'm getting a master class by one of the best to ever do it. And her method of teaching is kind of Socratic. She leads you along without really you fully being cognizant that she is. She is so talented, and that's why I was so nervous when she was like, "Why don't you go first out of the gate?" I was like, "Are you kidding me? Oh my God!"
Well, break it down because you're a great student of all the things implicated here. What do you think makes Megan so successful?
First of all, she just has presence. Her
Yeah.
presence. She's got she's like the whole package, but aside from the obvious qualities, like, she's beautiful, she speaks in cogent sentences, she reads everything, she's interested. She's one of those rare hosts that actively listens to people and picks up a thread. And so when you're listening, just as a fan, you're always finding yourself engrossed in these conversations that you might never have predicted you would find yourself just engrossed in.
And I would say the same thing about you. It's one of the reasons I find your show so compelling is everything you talk about, you use one of my rules when I write books. I only include interesting things. And when I'm reading other friends' manuscripts, I'll read something and I'll say, "Hey, are you really interested in this chapter?" And they're like, "Nah, not really. I thought I had to include it." I'm like, no. If you're not interested, your reader won't be. I find you choose your subjects of stuff. It's clear you're interested in it. And that just makes it a great experience for the viewer and the listener.
Mark, I quote Elmore Leonard's 10 Rules of Writing all the time, and you just named one of them, which is try to leave out the parts that people skip.
Right. It's a good rule, right? It's amazing how frequently it's not adhered to by others.
It's amazing. It's like biographers, I feel like biographers who adhere to the sort of cradle to grave way of telling a story, like that should kind of be abolished. If I were teaching storytelling or biography, I would pick those I don't really care about any given subject's great grandparents and their voyage to these shores. I don't care. I don't care about how their grandparents grew up. Just drop me in the middle of some crucial life event and then let's go from there. I like a nonlinear story.
Have you ever read Robert Caro's books?
Okay, I'm a girl. No.
Okay,
boys love to do this, by the way, when I was in my 20s. Carry around Robert Caro as like a mating call.
Okay, Robert Caro lives in my building. Like I see him in the elevator all the time. I think he's an incredible historical figure. He's written all these books. He's written all these books about Johnson. My dad worked in the Johnson administration. I cover politics. Johnson's an interesting figure. Don't tell my neighbor Bob. I've started his books about Johnson 10 times. And I can't get into the interesting part because, he moved to Texas, like he lived there. He's like one of these writers who needs to see the whole thing himself. But it's just filled with details that if you and I were editing his books, we would have just slashed right out.
Thank you for saying that. I feel like there's something fundamentally broken.
I challenge you to read the Johnson books. They're impossible. Attention, everyone listening who's 64 years or older, got an important announcement to make. The Department of Justice recently sued 3 major Medicare brokers for claiming they were unbiased while allegedly pushing people into plans that got them the biggest kickbacks. Horrible. It's true, so many insurance agents, they just can't be trusted. But you can't necessarily rely on the government for help and information either. That's why I want you to know about something called Chapter. Chapter was started by people who went through this personally themselves after their own parents were pushed into the wrong Medicare plan by an agent who was more focused on commissions than on good care. Chapter's mission is simple: give every American the honest, straightforward Medicare advice that they need and they deserve. And here's what makes them different. They're the only Medicare advisor that compares every plan all across the country, not just a few. That system saves their clients an average of $1,100 a year. There's really no reason not to call. It's quick, it's easy, and they can review your options in less than 20 minutes. If you're already in the right plan, they'll let you know that. But if there's a better plan, they'll help you switch. This could be one of the most important calls you make this year. Right now, dial pound 250 and say Chapter Medicare to get peace of mind. Again, that's pound 250 and say the words Chapter Medicare.